In this lecture, we're going to look at intents and intent filters. Now, there's some documentation under the weekly reading to look at intents and intent filters on the Android website. If you're fairly new to Android programming, you probably found this material a bit dull and dry and maybe not so easy to understand. So, what I'm going to do is tell you what you need to know for your projects. What There are two ways you can look at intents and intent filters. You can create software that that other Android apps will use. Okay, you can create components or modules that other Android apps will use. There's a lot of business there. On the other hand, as an app developer, you can use software and modules that other people have put together. Probably a good idea. So a lot of times you can put together an app with minimal coding just by going out and assembling different components that are out there. And the way you find these components is through intents and intent filters. So you say something like, I want to take a picture. And basically, the Android operating system will go find an activity or find another program that will take a picture based on the criteria that you've requested. An action of take picture, maybe any data, any categories, things like that. So when you're looking at intents and intent filters, don't get too bogged down with the minutia of what an intent is and creating filters and all that stuff. Think of it more as you're on an assembly line just putting things together, and that's your job. So what do they filter? They filter three main things. The first is actions. Now we know what actions are. They are action classes like we've put together on our application so far, different screens and things like that. So if I want to show a gallery view, that would be an action. If I want to take a picture, that would be an action. Next thing is services. So services are things like location service, which we will use later in this course. Services are things that you can subscribe to that provide you some type of information. So if you want to use GPS, you're going to want to subscribe to the location service. Finally, the one that only recently really clicked with me was broadcast receivers. The Android operating system will send certain messages when events happen, like batteries running low, connected to network or from a network, things like that. I honestly never really made use of a broadcast receiver and kind of had a difficulty in figuring out a use. And honestly, I went to work today, my full-time job, and one of the guys I'm working with, I used to do Android programming, and at lunch I just mentioned, I said, well, yeah, I'm going to talk about intent filters. And the one thing that never really clicked, or no, I didn't even volunteer it, as a matter of fact. I just asked him what he thought about it, and he says, oh, I love using it for broadcast receivers. And I said, how do you use broadcast receivers? And he gave me a really good case that I really hadn't considered before. He said that in an Android device, you need to be aware of things like when the battery's getting low, when you're connected from the network, and when you're disconnected from the network. Reason being, when the battery is getting low, you really need to get into energy conservation mode. So you want to do things like turn off background threads that might be running. So turn off background threads, things like that. Then another thing that you want to do is you might want to synchronize data, but only when you have good battery service and only when you're connected to a network. So what you might want to do is have a broadcast receiver that listens for network connection, and when you have a network, automatically synchronize. On Plant Places Mobile, if you go to the GPS screen, one of the buttons you'll see is upload. And the idea with that button is exactly what I've done over the last couple weeks here in the UK, which is I'm in the UK as we speak. I don't have data on my phone. I just decided not to bother with it. Too expensive. I'll just live without. I'll go to a botanic garden here, GPS literally hundreds of plants. Then as soon as I get Wi-Fi, or as soon as I get to an airport or something like that in the US and I'm back on the US network, I'll hit the upload button. Well, he made me think about this a different way. It would probably be better if I didn't force the user to press the upload button. That's probably a better option where as soon as I realize I'm on a data network and I have adequate battery power, that I just synchronize automatically without any user interaction. And then that follows one of the three major tenets of Android programming, which is simplify. Simplify the user's life. So there are three tenets of Android programming: enchant me, amaze me, simplify my life. If there's something that we can do to make the users easier with, lessen the things that they have to do manually, we should do it. And that's an excellent case for a broadcast receiver. So anyway, we can have broadcast receivers that filter based on certain events like the battery being low, network connection, receiving a phone call, receiving a text, things like that. So they're kind of event-based things. Probably quite a bit of opportunity here to be explored. So how do they filter? There are several ways they filter. We can really divide this list into two. Component is explicit intents only. When we've done our intents so far, we have been calling a component directly by saying start activity or start activity for result. Okay, so take component, set that aside, that's explicit intents only. Everything else is implicit intents. That means I'm not going to specify exactly what should do this action. I'm just going to say what I need. So we'll start with an action. There's several constants defined for actions, like picking a file, starting the camera, something like that. But that's one constant. Category, that's the one I have a little hard time putting my finger on exactly what it is. It's just something that helps to filter down the list once you have actions. Categories should accept at least default, which lets them accept any entry into that filter request. So default is one. If you don't specify any categories, you should at least specify default, and then you can receive any action, any request. Okay, data and type, these two go together. This might be something like a file path and a type of file to pull from that file path. We'll see this in the image chooser. And then extra, kind of like a big hash map or a big name value pair that just tells us, is there anything else that we need? Believe it or not, you're already using these filters. If you take a look in your program, and I'll pull ours up here. If you take, let me see if I can resize this, get this better on the screen a little bit. I'm going to go to our FS 2012 Planned Places and Android Manifest. And 1 second as this loads up. How do we start our application? We have to start it with some kind of activity, and here's our activity. Now you'll notice that this has an action and a category intent filter attached to it. The action main means this is an activity which can start a program. So basically this is a blessed activity or a special activity. It's one that can be used to start up our program. Launcher means this appears on the launcher screen on an Android device. Okay, so this activity appears on the launcher screen on an Android device. The first activity that you have defined will have this intent filter because the Android operating system needs to know how to go in and start your application, and it's going to look for the intent filter with main. It also needs to know what icons to put on the launcher screen. So it's going to look at ones that have this category launcher. So that was created for you, but this is essentially what an intent filter looks like. We need to create the activity in an Android XML file, and then we can put this intent filter on here like XML tags to say what events we want to listen for to start this activity. You see, last time we had a recording, we added this planned search activity. We didn't add any intent filter to that. And that's okay, because that activity is one that we're calling explicitly. We're explicitly saying, I need to go to planned search. So there we have it. Okay, so already using those. Now, some more examples. Remember what I said, if you're new to programming, don't have a whole lot of experience, and you need to start the camera, don't think of writing some code that's going to tell the camera to turn on, capture an image from the camera, write a callback. I did that once because honestly I didn't know better. I thought that's how you had to do it. I ended up writing probably 150 lines of code to trigger the camera and take a picture. And then somebody in class once, and this is one of the benefits of teaching, someone in class once said, Why are you doing that? Why not just use an intent? And man, intents made it so much easier. See, here's how we would invoke the camera if we wanted to in our app. What we would do is we would make an intent very similar to the explicit intent that we already created to go to the search screen, except we just put in this constant that says the activity that we want to use. Some image capture. We're not saying exactly what we want to do with the image capture. We're just saying that we need something that does image capture. Okay? And then also we need to tell it what to do. It's either going to return data to us or it's going to save a file. And so what I'm saying here is I'm making an extra. And in that extra, I'm saying, okay, what is the output? That's kind of a flag I'm sending. What is the output? I want you to output it to this location called pic file, which I don't have shown on this screen, but we will look at that in just a moment. So that's a camera, okay? Similarly, another thing we have is the image gallery, and for this I use another action constant, but a different one. I use the constant action pic, okay? And okay, I need to give it two pieces of data. The first piece of data is rather wordy, but what this is saying is get the directory where pictures are stored. And then finally, this one is filtering it by only images. So this is saying, show me an action pic, show me a screen that the user can use to pick things. Use the image path where pictures are stored. Okay, and show me only images. So that's what we're doing with the image gallery. Okay, so this is, as I say, this is a bit wordy. This is something that you pretty much want to copy and paste. So if you look at this URI.parse environment.get external storage public directory environment.directory pictures.get path, this is something that's, this is kind of copy paste stuff. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And the idea there is this gives us the picture directory where pictures are stored in Android. So if I look, I'm going to go to my DDMS. Sorry, let me show you what I'm doing. Up here, there's a button called DDMS. You'll grow to like this because this is a way that we can interact with, let's see, I'll hold and control M this, although I don't know if that really bought me anything. Now I need to squeeze it this way. This allows us to interact with the Android emulator. It lets us do things like simulate sending GPS signals to the Android device, which is really. It also has a file explorer. Now, if I look at MNT, SD card, and then pictures, that's considered the storage directory for pictures. Now, in the old days, we would have put a path to MNT SD card pictures, but that's inefficient because we're hard coding this path. Now it's a lot better and a lot easier to just ask the environment, where am I storing pictures? Okay, so what we'll do, let's go ahead and put together a camera intent. And 1 second. I'm going to try and control M and resize this a little bit. What I want to do is on my screen for the, what do we call that? I'm going to need, sorry, I need to control M one more time. On the layout that we have for GPSing a plant, if I go to layout and I go to location, I'm going to add another button that's going to be like a take picture button. And I have this on the real Android apps that I can take a picture and remember what plant it is I was looking at. So I'm going to load up the location XML now, and if I can get in here, click Control M, and what I'm going to do then is just take a button. Okay, and drag and drop, and we're going to change this button. I'm going to say edit text, and we're going to say new string, and I'll say take picture. Okay, okay, looks like it's a bit locked up now, so we'll give it just a moment to come back. Hopefully I didn't click too much on it. usually doesn't take this long, so I'll tab around. I don't see anything. Okay, so 1 second. Let me work this out. I think I have a pop-up that's gone awry. So one moment, please. Well, it looks like it's stuck because it's trying to build. So what I'll do is I'll right-click and I'll see if it will let me go ahead and just associate a method with this while we wait for it to build. So I right-click, all properties, sort by name, all by name rather, and I'm going to look for onClick. A little bit of scrolling here. This is where it really pays to know some XML so you don't have to go through and actually find this. So choose onClick, and I'm going to say take photo, and OK. And if all works well, then I can go back, I'll save this. It's probably going to get mad at me when I save because it's already backed up trying to build. But we'll save this, and I'll go back to Location Finder. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make the method called take photo. That's what, daggone it, that's what I called it, didn't I? I always type these things and I immediately forget what I typed. I'm pretty sure that's what I called it. Other properties, recent, onClick, excellent. Okay, take photo, copy that into my buffer, and location finder. Okay, now remember, we have to be careful because we jump right in here to location finder, and it's easy to just, oh, I'll create a new method here. But remember the rules for creating a method. It must be within the class. It cannot be within another method. The safest place to do it is probably towards the bottom. So I'll say public void and then paste that method name, view v, open curly, close curly. Okay, public void take photo view v. And what I'm going to do now is remember we had that long string that will tell us where the images are. I'm going to copy that. Okay, I'm going to come back and I'm going to paste that. Okay. And now what we need to do for the camera is we also need to trigger the action and we need to tell it where to put the file when it's finished. So trigger the action. Okay, got it. So we're giving it an intent. Okay, and we're saying image capture is what we intend to do, and then we have a path. Okay, finally, what we're going to do is we're going to associate the intent with this path. Okay, so we're going to say boom. Okay, let me expand this so we can see it all, and by golly, I have a lot of red lines, so we know the first thing we'd want to do with the red line is clean it up. So Control-Shift-O to organize imports. Okay, and this might take just a moment. A little surprised it's mad about intent. I thought we already had one. Okay. Okay, I see what I need to do. Intent. I need to store this into a variable. Intent camera intent equals new intent. So there we go. That's a part I was missing there. Now here, this should be able to find itself by correcting imports. So Control-Shift-O, and we'll let it automatically figure out imports. Okay, that seems to be having some difficulty, so I'll just go ahead and click. And it's building in the background. I think that's why it's slowing down a little bit. I think it just needs some time to catch up and build. So while it's working on building, let me walk through what we've done here. Intent camera intent equals new intent. We're saying that we want to trigger the camera. Okay. Next, URI data equals URI.parse. And then we're saying get from the environment the external storage public directory for pictures. Get the path for that. Again, that's kind of wordy, but this is something that's just as easy to just do a little copy and paste job on if that's easier. Now the put extra means that we're telling the camera to output its stuff into this directory. Output this stuff into this directory. And finally, we simply need to call the intent. So, again, a little bit frozen up now, but let's see if we can get this to come back. I'll go ahead and save. For some reason, my workspace build has taken a while, which usually is a sign I need to stop and restart Eclipse. So I'll do that in just a minute if I can't get any more response, because doesn't seem to be taking my enter key. Okay, one moment, please.